Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Before we start with our today's session, we have an announcement. BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS is conducting National Scholarship Test, which is scheduled to be conducted on 6th of February 2022. How do you register? Follow the link given in the description box. Give the necessary information and you would stand a chance of winning some attractive scholarships. Let's get started and look into the first question. When a bill is reserved by a governor for the consideration of the president, what is the time limit prescribed by the constitution for returning the bill? 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, no time limit. The answer to this is no time limit. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here is speaking about the governor. Let us try and understand what is this question all about. We have two important articles in the Indian Constitution. One is Article 200, the other is Article 201 of the Indian Constitution. What does Article 200 speak about? We have the legislature, that is state legislature. The state legislature have decided that they have to propose a bill. This bill is sent to the governor. So what does the governor do? The governor looks into this particular bill and he has multiple options. What are these options? He may give his assent to the bill. The minute he gives his assent, signs on this bill, it immediately becomes an act. So you have the state legislature, they propose a bill and this bill is sent to the governor. The governor approves this bill, gives the assent to it, it immediately becomes an act. He may withhold his assent to the bill. The bill then ends and does not become an act. He may return the bill for the reconsideration of the House or the Houses. If the bill is passed by the House or Houses again with or without amendments and presented to the governor for his assent, the governor must give his assent to the bill. What does this mean? The proposal is made by the state legislature. They send it to the governor. The governor returns this bill to the legislature. So the legislature may introduce changes in that particular bill, or they may not make changes in that particular bill and resend it back to the governor. So when they send it for the second time, it is compulsory for the governor to give assent to this particular bill. So this bill becomes an act when it is given assent by the governor. That is what is Article 200 all about. There is another option that is also given to the governor as well, and that happens to be the fourth option, which means he may reserve the bill for the consideration of the president. So if he reserves this bill for the consideration of the president, it goes to the president and rest of it will fall into the court of the president. This is considered under Article 201 of the Indian Constitution. It speaks about bill reserved for the consideration. When this bill is given to the governor transfers this bill to the president. What would happen? What are the powers given to the president? The president can give assent to this particular bill. It becomes a legislation. He can also withhold this particular assent, and the president may direct the governor to return the bill to the house. So when the president directs the governor to return this bill to the state legislature, is there a time limit? No. This means the governor gives it to the president. The president does not have any time limit. He can keep this particular bill. There is no time limit prescribed whatsoever in the Indian Constitution. So if you look into Article 200, it also makes a mention that the governor may, as soon as possible. Such a provision is not present under Article 201 of the Indian Constitution. So there is no time limit prescribed for the president where he can keep this particular bill for a very long time and may return when he feels so. So according to this question, when a bill is reserved by a governor for the consideration of the president, there is no time limit prescribed by the constitution. He may return this bill whenever he wants. Added to this, there is another important point. Look at point number 3 of Article 200. What does it say? When the legislature send it for the second time, the governor is duty bound to sign this particular legislation, which is not present for Article 201. So if the president is given this bill by the governor for the second time, the president need not have to sign compulsorily. So the compulsory signing or giving assent is only for the governor and it is not for the president. So remember, there is no time limit prescribed by the constitution, and if it is referred to the president for the second time with or without amendments, the president need not have to sign as well. That is duty bound for the governor and not for the president. Now let's look into the next practice question. With reference to River Cities Alliance, which of the following statements are correct? It was launched by the Ministry of Jal Shakti and the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. The alliance is open to all river cities of India. Any river city can join the alliance at any time. Which of the statements are correct? Since it is asking for the correct statement, the answer to this is 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the PIB makes a reference to the River Cities Alliance. Let us try and understand what are these options. When it comes to the first option, it was launched by the Ministry of Jal Shakti and the Ministry of Environment. This is a false statement. Why? Because it was launched by the Ministry of Jal Shakti, yes, but it is not the Ministry of Environment, but instead it is the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Yes, the alliance is open to all river cities of India. Any river city can join the alliance at any time. Initially, it was only proposed for the Ganga basin, but over a period of time, it was extended to other cities as well. So what is this River Cities Alliance? So basically, this is an alliance of all those cities where a river runs through. What happens? Number of cities in India have rivers which are getting polluted. As a result, people are the major sufferers. Drinking water gets impacted and the health of the people gets impacted. So what would happen? All these cities where the river runs through, they come on an alliance. They also have a common platform where they discuss innovative ideas. These ideas can be shared amongst each other so that they have a path-breaking initiatives where they would be able to learn and inspire each other. So an idea, a plan or an innovation that is envisaged implemented by one of the authorities in any of these platforms, the same will be exchanged to other cities and other rivers so that those municipalities would be able to implement. So these innovations can be of the national origination or it can be inspired from international experiences as well. So the same is taken up, the same will be implemented so that there is sustainable growth of the rivers. So basically discussing and exchanging of information for the sustainable management of rivers is what is this River Cities Alliance. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements are incorrect with respect to National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change? It is a centrally sponsored scheme which was set up in the year 2015-16. National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development is the national implementing entity. Which of the statements are incorrect? Since it is asking for the incorrect statement, the answer to this is 1 only. Why? That is because the National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change is not a centrally sponsored scheme, but instead it is a central sector scheme. What is the difference? When it comes to the centrally sponsored scheme, you also have contributions made by the state government, but when it comes to the central sector scheme, the contribution is made entirely by the central government. So this happens to be a central sector scheme which was set up in the year 2015 and 16, and it was established to support adaptation activities in states and union territories which are susceptible to adverse effect of climate change. This article on the PIB makes a reference to the National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change. What are the objectives of this scheme? Preparing and updating climate scenario, assessing vulnerability and climate impact assessment, capacity building of various stakeholders on climate change adaptation, and project cycle management and developing knowledge network, mainstreaming of approaches and learnings from project or program, implementation through the knowledge management. These are the objectives when it comes to the National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements with respect to cartelization. The Competition Commission is responsible for enforcing the cartel laws in India. Prices controlled by the government under a law is not cartelization. Both companies and individuals can be prosecuted under the Competition Act. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a mention of cartelization. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we speak about cartelization, what is cartelization? Which is the act that takes care of cartelization? Which is the commission which takes care of it? So we have the Competition Act of 2002, which governs the cartels in India. We have the Competition Commission of India, which is responsible for enforcing the cartel laws in India. So the Competition Act governs the cartels in India, and we have the Competition Commission, which is responsible for enforcing it. So the first statement is right. Now the question is, what are these cartel laws? What do we understand by cartel? We have the definition as given in the Competition Act of 2002. According to Section 2 Clause C, cartel includes an association of producers, sellers, distributors, traders or service providers who by agreement amongst themselves limit, control or attempt to control the production, distribution, sale or price or trade in goods or provision of services. Let me explain it in simple terms. Let's say for example, in the present situation, we have the tire makers. Let's say for example, we have MRF or let's say JK Tires. All these companies, they discuss amongst each other. They say that this is the number of tires that we will be producing in a particular year. So they put a restriction on these production, and at the same time, they may also enter into a consensus that the price of the tires of all the companies will be the same. Ideally, what should happen? There should be something called as the market forces. The market forces should dictate the prices of the tires, but instead of market forces dictating the prices, these companies come together, they enter into a consensus, they set a particular price, and at the same time, they may also limit the production as well. So what would happen? It is the customers who are bound to suffer. Ideally, if there is competition, if the market forces play a role in the market, the customers would be able to get what is the right price for that particular product because of the competition in the market. But if there are companies which enter into an agreement whereby they limit the production or they put a particular price on their product, it means the consumer is bound to suffer, as he may not get really good price for this particular product and may have to pay higher price for this product. So basically, cartelization is about this particular process where you have companies who collude to fix the prices, indulge in rigging or share customers, etc., so on and so forth. Now if you look into the second option, prices controlled by the government under a law is not cartelization. What does this mean? This means there is an exception given under the Competition Act. Let's say for example, under section 54 of the Competition Act, what would happen? Let's say the government decides there is a particular product or a service which has to be given to the people for the largest interest of the country, for the public interest of the country, for the security of the country. In that case, if the government passes a law and the law gives an exemption, that is not cartelization. So remember, cartelization is when these private bodies organize themselves, but if the government comes into picture and it gives an exemption via a law, that is not called cartelization, because there is a larger public interest, there is the security of the country coming into picture. So prices controlled by the government under a law is not cartelization. So the third statement says both companies and individuals can be prosecuted under the Competition Act. Yes, both companies and individuals can be prosecuted. Foreign companies can also be prosecuted as well. With reference to water on the planet Earth, consider the following statements. The amount of water in the rivers and lakes is more than the amount of groundwater. The amount of water in polar ice caps and glaciers is more than the amount of groundwater. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why? Because the first statement is wrong. That is because the amount of groundwater is comparatively more than what is present in the rivers and the lakes. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2021. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is Northeast Special Infrastructure Development Scheme. So what is this scheme all about? This happens to be a central scheme, which means it is a central sector scheme where 100% of the contributions or funding is made by the central government to the state governments of the northeastern region. So what exactly happens under the Northeast Special Infrastructure Development Scheme? There are three ways of looking at it. One, it leads to the development of physical infrastructure. Second is with respect to the social infrastructure. Third is with respect to the tourism. So what would happen under this scheme? Since it is a central sector scheme, contributions would be made by the central government to the state governments. So the state governments will develop physical infrastructure. What does the physical infrastructure include? Something like the water supply, power and connectivity projects, roads, all this belong to the physical infrastructure. Money given by the central government to the northeastern states should be used for construction of physical infrastructure. Next, what we have is the social infrastructure. This is about primary and secondary education. This is also about the health. So such will be coming under the social infrastructure. Finally, what we have is tourism related projects, which is also envisaged as part of the Northeast Special Infrastructure Developmental Scheme. So what are the objectives? The objectives is to ensure development of the Northeast region, whereby financial assistance is given by the central government to the state government, and this also means that there is fair and equitable growth of the northeastern part of India. Who will be monitoring this particular scheme? The funding will be provided by the central government, but the monitoring of the scheme will be at the state government. So the state government of that particular state will implement a robust monitoring scheme for the execution of the projects as envisaged under the Northeast Special Infrastructure Development Scheme. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this fact of the day. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.